All right. Hello, New York. Okay, so we're going to start with a little bit of an experiment. Are you all ready to play with me? It's like mid-afternoon. I know we're a little sleepy, so let's get some blood pumping here, okay? All right, so research tells us that these things are true about 50% of people. So what we're going to do is we're going to experiment, and I'm going to tell you a fact. It's from the internet, so it's probably true. And then we're going to test it out. So I'll tell you the fact, and then what we're going to do then is if it's true about you, you are going to raise your hand, okay? So we're going to start with a really easy one. So research tells us that 50% of people like coffee. So if you like coffee, raise your hand. Okay, wow, the internet maybe wasn't right on that one. That looks like more than 50%, but okay. Maybe it's because it's the afternoon and we're all like dreaming of a cup right now. Okay, let's do the second one. All right, research tells us that 50% of people believe they've seen a ghost in their lifetime. So if you've seen a ghost, like you're sure you've seen a ghost, wow, this is amazing. Like, yeah, actually it's about 50%. I'm sure they have really good stories for happy hour later. Go check them out. All right, the next one. Research tells us that 50% of people use their phone on the toilet. Raise your hand, be honest. Come on, raise your hands. Yeah, I think that one's wrong. That's definitely not 50%. All right, okay, last one. Research tells us that 50% of people, when they think their thoughts in words. The other 50% of people think their thoughts in pictures. So if you think your thoughts in words, raise your hand. Wow, actually a lot more of you. That's amazing. We got a lot of word thinkers in HR. This is great. All right, well, thank you for playing with me. I want to do a little bit of a different experiment this time. We're going to slow it down just a second. I know it's the afternoon. Please don't fall asleep on me. But I want you to close your eyes for just a minute, okay? All right, close your eyes. We're going to slow it down for just a second. And I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and I want you to just answer them in your mind, okay? So the very first question is, what are you feeling? Notice I didn't say, how are you? The answer is not fine or good, but what are you specifically feeling right now? It's probably more than one thing. All right, the second question, what might be distracting you right now? What's keeping you from being here, present with me in this moment? Maybe it's a really long to-do list. Maybe it's the emails you have piling up. Maybe you're thinking about happy hour already. Whatever it is, what's distracting you? And then the last question is, who are you today? Who are you? Neuroscience tells us that we are a different person biologically yesterday than we are today, than we will be tomorrow. Our neural pathways are changing every single moment. So our brain is always changing. Yesterday, I was a mom getting my 2 kids off to school. Today, I'm a lady in a hot pink power suit talking to all of you. But who are you today, right now? All right, open your eyes. Okay, how much more connected do you feel with yourself now that we took 2.5 minutes to stop and just check in with how we're feeling, what we're feeling, who we are, the distractions that we might have? And you remember that 50% from earlier? If this was hard for you, you are not alone. Recent research that just came out this year tells us that 50% of people have a very challenging time accurately identifying their emotions in real time. So if it was hard for you to name your emotions, you are not alone. And I think that the reason why this is because we're so busy all the time. We're in back-to-back meetings. We have constant notifications piling onto us. There's always responsibilities, more things that we need to be doing in our society and the way that we live today. So what would happen if we slowed down a little bit? What are the things that would speed up as part of that? So I want to test this out a little bit now with the people that are on your team. So I want you to think of one person in particular that you work with pretty closely. Maybe this is your boss, maybe this is a peer, maybe it's someone that reports to you, but I want you to get one person in your mind right now. And I want you to think of that person. Could you tell me right now what they're feeling this week? Could you tell me what might be distracting them? And could you tell me who they are underneath the surface, not just who they are at work? We don't take time to slow down to think about ourselves, and work is so busy, a lot of times we don't take time to really think about the people that we're working with either. And at the end of the day, we work with humans. And humans, as much as I don't like to admit it all the time, have emotions, and those do follow us into the workplace. We actually have like 27 different categories of emotions, with hundreds of different types of emotions that are underlying each and every single one of these. In fact, a recent survey from BetterUp, recent research shows that there's 27,000 emotions. That seems like a lot to me, but yeah, there are a lot of different emotions that we could be feeling. And as much as we love to think that every single one of our team members is always feeling 100% enjoyment all the time working with us, the reality is they're feeling a lot of other things too, right? They're feeling lots of other emotions that are part of their day-to-day, whether it's inside of work or whether it's outside of work. And that goes into our second question. What are you distracted by? And I think a lot of managers, especially ones that have people that report to them that are in the younger generations, or if they're working remotely, they think they have a lot of distractions that are like social media or maybe office politics, or they're always instant messaging. That made me sound really old when I said it that way. But you know what I mean, slacking or whatever. But the reality is that they're actually impacted and distracted by so many other things that are going on in our day-to-day. I gave this speech 2 weeks ago in Chicago and had just read the news about another school shooting in Tennessee. And all I wanted to do was go home and hug my kids. And it took everything in me not to cry on the stage when I was giving the talk, like going through this that day. And it's just so real. We have so many other things, like having a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old and trying to find childcare the last 3 years. That's a distraction. They're real distractions that are real human things that so many people on our teams are going through. And how many of them actually talk about them at work? A lot of us don't have that kind of safe space to really be able to think about all of that. And why is that? It's because in our society, we bring like a certain version of ourselves to work. We bring like this like really professional version of ourselves where you just see this like little bit that's on the top of our behavior, of what we do. But underneath all of that, underneath that is so much more. It's all of those feelings, the things that we're thinking, who we are, all of our experiences that have led us up to this point. So our 3 questions that we had, I want to revisit our check-in. What are you feeling? What might be distracting you? And who are you today? So that last question we interchange pretty regularly at Campfire for what are your intentions for our time together? We use this at the beginning of meetings to check in. And there's a consultant that works with a group of managers at Microsoft, and they did this check-in, these 3 questions at the beginning of meetings with a group of several hundred managers at Microsoft. And what they found is that after they started doing check-ins at the beginning of their meetings, their meeting duration time went down by 30%. I see some surprised looks. I was kind of surprised by that too, because it seems counterintuitive. We're taking more time to talk about our squishy feelings, and then we're able to like speed up as a result. How does that work? It's because you're creating a different kind of psychological safety in the room that's allowing people to move more freely, move in ways that they can actually communicate more easily. So I want to do a little bit of a different type of experiment. I won't make you close your eyes again. I don't want to lose you. But I want you to imagine the feeling of sitting around a campfire. So let's all imagine that we've all like packed up together and we're all going somewhere, maybe like in upstate New York, and we're all going to go camping together, or glamping, whatever your style is. And let's say that we're all together and we're going around a campfire. And you know that feeling when you're getting ready to light a campfire and you've gathered all of this wood and you have someone that, you know, has prior knowledge, was a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, and they know how to light a fire. They're taking charge and everyone's chatting with each other. You can feel like the momentum and the energy building, and then you all sit down and this fire starts to like go, and you look at the flames and you can smell this incredible smell of fire. And this fire is giving us warmth, and the fire is cooking our food. Maybe we're roasting marshmallows. But the thing that inevitably happens when you light a campfire, and what's been really a part of our society for centuries, is around the campfire, people start to tell stories. They start to talk about what happened throughout the day, maybe whatever you did on your hike, or whatever things you want to tell stories about. And you notice that you have commonalities between the people that are around you. You share your experiences. And maybe you also start to notice some of your differences. But because of the safety that exists around this campfire, you look at those differences and you notice them, but you appreciate them. So it's kind of a different setting that allows us to come closer together. This is exactly the kind of safety that we love to be able to create at work. So how do you create that type of safety where people appreciate their similarities, they can talk about their stories, they can have that kind of psychological safety that Harvard professor Amy Edmondson describes in her TED Talk? And through some of the research that she did with Google, they talk about 3 major factors that get us into that place of psychological safety. So the first one is that you have to frame work as a learning problem. It's not people that are trying to compete with each other to figure out the answer. You're all on the same team, trying to solve one problem together. The second one is that leaders have to admit that they're human. They have to admit their fallibility, that they make mistakes, because all of us do. None of us are perfect. The last thing is that leaders have to model curiosity. They have to be able to ask really great questions. Leaders are not supposed to have all of the answers, but somehow when leaders get promoted, we think we're supposed to have all of the answers. So it's really about trying to create a space where people can be more human. And coming out of the pandemic, the last several years, there's been a lot of research about what creates this kind of safety, especially as we've moved into remote, hybrid, or different environments than we've ever had before. And there's a great book by a gentleman named Vivek Murthy. It's called Together. This is one of the great quotes from his book. And he talks about how it's really important to create a sense of community, and that there's this loneliness epidemic that's happening in our workplace and just in our society overall. And the thing that he says is the answer to the loneliness epidemic is that we have to create our workplaces as an engine for mental health and well-being. Now, you remember at the very beginning when I had people raise their hands and I was like, it's about 50% of people in the room? I would guess that if I asked you right now if your workplace was an engine for mental health and well-being, that there would not be 50% of the people in the room that are raising their hands. And so what Vivek talks about is that it's so important to be able to shift that loneliness, which in turn creates more of that isolation and it goes into this downward spiral. Instead, we have to shift and we have to create togetherness and community. And a very large part of that is our managers. So a recent study by McKinsey done during the pandemic showed that the top reason why people left their jobs during the height of the pandemic was because they believed that their managers didn't care about them. And if you'll notice all of the other things on this list too, they're all kind of related to managers too. I didn't know what was expected of me. I didn't know how I was doing in my job, my developmental opportunities. So really, this is all about how do our managers shape our employees' experiences within our organization. This is even more critical because recent research that just came out in January shows that a manager has the same impact or more of an impact on our mental health and well-being than a doctor or a therapist, and the same amount as our partner, which is mind-blowing, right? Like the person that you report to, for over 70% of people, has this much impact on their mental health and well-being. So what do we do about all of this? How do we start to shift so that managers know how to create this kind of connection, that they know how to take care of their people? So we've created a map to more connected leaders, and it comes with 3 different things. The first one is connecting with yourself. The second one is connecting to others. And the last one is connecting to community. The first one is connecting with yourself. When was the last time that any of you slowed down for 3 minutes? Just like we did, thank you for whoever just pointed in the crowd. I went too far, thank you. So the first one, so how many of you take time regularly for yourself to stop and spend 5 minutes in reflection? I know, I love this. Yes, some good hands here. It's really hard for us to make time in our busy schedules to do this, and particularly managers. They don't always see the productivity associated with spending time to stop and reflect. Tasha Eurich has a great TED Talk, and part of the reason why this is so important, she talks about how 95% of people think that they are self-aware, and in reality, only 10% of people actually are. And so a lot of our managers think that they're doing a really great job. They think that they're really connected. They think that they're empathetic. They think that they're really connected. But how many of them actually are? So what are the things that we can do to support them? We can do things like 360s. We can do things like giving them space or prompts for reflection. We can help them get feedback from their teams and make that a regular part of our culture, asking for feedback. I love, in Radical Candor, one of the questions that's really great in that book is, what is one thing that I could do or change that would make it working with me more easy? It's like, what's just one thing that you could do, that I could do differently for you? And that's really going to be how we shape our behaviors overall. The second thing is connecting with other people. People are craving this connection. So I want to give you an example. So I started working at Campfire during the pandemic. It's a remote first company. And honestly, when I first started working from home, I was a little lonely. And when I started talking to my cat pretty regularly, I realized that I had to do something about it. So I just started doing these things called coffee chats. So I think it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday. And I just decided, okay, I'm kind of lonely. Maybe other people are kind of lonely too. And so I decided to post an open invitation to come just hang out in my Zoom room one morning and have coffee. And we would just hang out, introduce people to each other and network, safe space. So I posted that on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and then 35 people showed up to my first one. I was shocked. I didn't know 95% of them, honestly, had no clue. It was very surprising to me to have all of these people in my Zoom room. So I realized, okay, well, people are really craving this type of connection. I realized that what was most important was not that I was making connections with all of these people, but all of these folks were connecting with each other in really meaningful ways. And so I started doing this thing where I realized, okay, well, if I did these coffee chats and I structure them just a little bit, because networking is awkward, right? Sometimes you don't know what to say when you go up and talk to people, especially if you're introverted. So what I did is I created this structure where networking coffee chats, I put these 3 questions out there. I put people into breakouts and I send them into a breakout with 3 to 4 different people, and I give them a question or a prompt that goes just a little bit deeper than the average question. So I want to get a little bit more psychological safety in the room. And so I send them to this breakout. They have a specific thing they're talking about. I tell them to skip the small talk. They go deeper and they go into this breakout room for 7 to 8 minutes. And then they come back, and after 7 to 8 minutes, they are electric. The room is amazing. They are so deeply connected after 7 to 8 minutes of meeting these new people. So I've been doing this for about a year. I've now had probably 750, 1,000 people in my Zoom room that have all come in and been a part of this experiment that I've run as part of coffee chats. And what's been really interesting is I can pull 4 people from 4 different continents into the same Zoom room, and they will find things in common that they share. So that's my last encouragement to you, is creating connection with your community inside of your organizations. I worked for 10 years inside of companies in HR programs, in HR departments. And the engagement programs that HR started never did as well as the ones that were started by people inside of the organization, employees that were super passionate, that were really wanting to create community inside of their organization. So we shifted our model, and instead we just focused on supporting people that were really wanting to build that community instead. So there's lots of things that we can do to connect people with a deeper purpose, connect them with their individualized purpose for who they are inside of the organization, how they connect to your broader mission, but also how they connect to other people inside of your organization, and how they can find those connections, those bonds with other folks that are either alike to them, that have those similarities, or that have those differences that they can celebrate together. This is what we've done through Campfire. So we have a virtual learning platform, right? And we create space for people from a whole bunch of different companies, a whole bunch of different industries, managers to come together to talk about what they're going through, how to have a better one-on-one, that type of thing. But the biggest thing that comes out of that is not necessarily the skills and knowledge, but really the reviews that we hear the most are, it was just so great to connect with other people who get it. They're going through the same things that I am. They have deep empathy for me. So creating that type of space for your leaders is so important so that they can get more connected both to themselves and to others. So I want to close with a challenge. So every single Campfire session we end with something that we like to call take action. So I always say in every single session that I facilitate, what we do in this hour together or this 20 minutes is great, but what's even more important is what you actually go do with it. Behavior change doesn't happen just because we heard something cool, it's what we go do with it. So you know how I was talking in my coffee chats, we skip the small talk? I want to give you all permission. Let's pretend like this is a permission slip. I'll give it to all of you. You can take it with you. Let's pretend that this is a permission slip. You can skip all of the small talk when you go network after this today and just go a little bit deeper, ask a little bit deeper questions and try to build some of those connections because you have a whole bunch of people in this room that have a lot of commonalities to you. They're dealing with similar things and there's a lot of knowledge in this room. So go connect with each other, and if you do it, come find me during happy hour. I'd love to hear how it goes and connect with you too. All right. So nice talking to you all. Thank you so much.